The air is thick with smoke. Flames engulf homes and forests, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. Hurricanes rage with unprecedented ferocity, swallowing coastlines beneath surging seas. This is not a scene from a dystopian novel, it is the stark reality of a planet in the throes of climate change. The Earth's climate is changing at an alarming rate, and the consequences are already being felt around the globe. From raging wildfires to catastrophic floods, natural disasters are increasing in frequency and intensity, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in their wake. These events are not isolated incidents, they are interconnected symptoms of a planet out of balance. The scientific consensus is clear: human activities, primarily the burning of fossil fuels, are releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, trapping heat and driving global warming. This warming effect is disrupting weather patterns, intensifying storms, and altering ecosystems, leading to a surge in the number and severity of natural disasters. The evidence is undeniable, and the time to act is now. The past few decades have witnessed an alarming increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Hurricanes are becoming more powerful, droughts more prolonged, and floods more devastating. These events are no longer isolated occurrences, they are becoming the new normal. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, the leading international body for the assessment of climate change, has concluded with over 95% certainty that human activities are the dominant cause of observed warming since the mid-20th century. This warming is leading to a wide range of changes, including rising sea levels, melting glaciers, and more extreme weather events. The impacts of these changes are already being felt around the world. Coastal communities are facing increased risks from sea level rise and storm surges. Farmers are struggling to cope with prolonged droughts and unpredictable rainfall patterns. Forests are burning at unprecedented rates, releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and further accelerating climate change. The human and economic costs of these disasters are staggering, and they are only expected to rise in the coming decades unless we take urgent action to address the root causes of climate change. According to a 2021 report by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, UNDRR, there has been a five-fold increase in the number of weather, climate, and water-related disasters over the past 50 years. The report states that these disasters have claimed the lives of over 2 million people and resulted in economic losses of $3.64 trillion. The increase in disasters is largely attributed to climate change, which is exacerbating extreme weather events and making them more frequent and intense. This trend is particularly alarming in developing countries, which are often the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change but have the least resources to cope with its effects. The UN report emphasizes that climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is a present danger that is already having devastating consequences for people and communities around the world. The report calls for urgent action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, invest in disaster risk reduction, and build resilience to the impacts of climate change, particularly in vulnerable communities. It stresses that investing in disaster risk reduction is not only a moral imperative but also an economic necessity, as the costs of inaction far outweigh the costs of taking action. Section 4. The science is clear. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, has concluded with over 95% certainty that human activities are the dominant cause of observed warming since the mid-20th century. This warming is primarily driven by the emission of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide into the atmosphere from human activities, primarily the burning of fossil fuels for energy. These gases trap heat from the sun, causing the Earth's atmosphere to warm. The IPCC's fifth assessment report, released in 2013, states that it is extremely likely that human influence has been the dominant cause of the observed warming since the mid-20th century. The report goes on to say that continued emissions of greenhouse gases will cause further warming and changes in all components of the climate system. Limiting climate change will require substantial and sustained reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Section 5. California burning, a case study. The devastating wildfires that have ravaged California in recent years provide a stark illustration of the link between climate change and the increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters. California has always experienced wildfires, but the scale and intensity of recent fires are unprecedented. Climate change is exacerbating wildfire risk in California by creating hotter, drier conditions that make forests more susceptible to burning. The 2020 California wildfire season was the most destructive on record, burning over 4 million acres, destroying thousands of homes and killing dozens of people. The fires were fueled by a combination of factors, including a prolonged drought, record-breaking heat, and strong winds. These conditions, which are becoming increasingly common due to climate change, created a tinderbox-like environment that allowed wildfires to ignite and spread with incredible speed and ferocity.